What happens when the world's most bird-rich country throws a party in the jungle, and only the rarest guests show up? Welcome to Colombia, a land where birds don't just live, they show off. We're talking colors you didn't know existed, tails longer than the birds themselves, and hummingbirds with beards. Yep, real beards. Colombia is home to more bird species than any other country on Earth, over 1,900. But today, we're not looking at just any birds. We're diving deep into the forests, cloud mountains, and forgotten valleys to find 15 exotic species that live only here. Nowhere else. Some are vanishing, some were only discovered in the last few decades. And some, they're so elusive, scientists didn't even know they still existed. So grab your binoculars, charge your camera, and let's head into the wildest bird kingdom on the planet. Let's meet the birds of Colombia. Let's kick things off with a bird so colorful, it looks like it flew through a paint store explosion. Meet the multicolored tanager, a tiny bird, barely 4.5 inches long, found only in Colombia's cloud forests and nowhere else on Earth. Its name doesn't lie, this bird wears nearly every color of the rainbow. Golden yellow chest, turquoise wings, a green back, orange face, and black mask. Honestly, it looks like a tropical highlighter pack with wings. But don't let the bold colors fool you. This bird is surprisingly hard to spot. It flits through dense forest canopies at elevations between 4,000 and 7,000 feet, especially in the western Andes. It prefers mature cloud forests, rich in moss, orchids, bromeliads, and insects. That's right, while its looks scream fruit bird, the multicolored tanager mainly feeds on tiny bugs and caterpillars, plus a side of berries when it feels fancy. Fun fact, this bird is so shy and so fast that even local researchers call it a ghost with feathers. It's one of the most sought-after species by birdwatchers visiting Colombia, but many never actually see it. It travels in small flocks, often mixed with other birds, zipping through the trees like a flicker of neon. Unfortunately, it's also one of Colombia's most threatened endemic birds due to habitat loss from agriculture and deforestation. Less than 10% of its original forest habitat remains intact, but conservation groups are working to protect its last strongholds, especially in reserves across Antiochia, Risaralda, and Valle del Cauca. So if you ever find yourself walking through a misty forest in western Colombia and catch a flash of every Crayola color in one bird, you didn't imagine it. You just met the multicolored tanager, a flying rainbow born to disappear in the green. Let's climb a little higher, to a mountain range that rises straight from the Caribbean coast into clouds, mist, and isolation. This is the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, home to its own mini-universe of species and one of its most charming residents, the Santa Marta Parakeet. This green beauty is found nowhere else on Earth, not even in other parts of Colombia, just here, in this one mountain range. It's about 9 inches long, with a bright green body, a splash of red on the belly, blue-tipped wings, and a face that says, "Hi, I'm rare, and I know it." They live between 6,000 and 10,000 feet, mostly in humid montane forests and cloud-covered oak groves. Their favorite hangouts? Tree canopies full of fruits, seeds, and flowers, where they forage in noisy, chattering flocks. And they are noisy, not in an annoying way, but more like a cheerful brunch group in the treetops. Fun fact, the Santa Marta Parakeet often flies in tight, swooping flocks, flashing green and red through the fog like confetti in motion. They're also extremely important pollinators and seed dispersers, helping maintain the health of this isolated ecosystem. But here's the flip side. They're considered endangered. Why? Because this beautiful bird has nowhere else to go. With deforestation, farming, and climate change impacting its habitat, the entire species is at risk, even though it lives inside a globally recognized biodiversity hotspot. Conservation efforts are underway, especially by local communities and indigenous groups who see these birds as part of the sacred mountain's identity. So if you're ever lucky enough to trek the cloud forests of Santa Marta, listen for the squeaky chorus overhead and look up. You might just see the Santa Marta Parakeet, a tropical gem that lives only where the mountains kiss the sky. Once thought to be extinct, this bright green parrot is one of Colombia's great comeback stories. Say hello to the yellow-eared parrot, a chunky, lovable bird with lime green feathers, a bright yellow cheek patch, and a slightly awkward but endearing flight style. It looks like a cartoon character with wings, and we mean that in the best way. This species was believed to be gone forever in the late 1980s. But in 1999, surprise, a small group was rediscovered in the high Andes of Colombia, clinging to survival in remote cloud forests. What saved them? A very specific tree, the wax palm Ceroxylon quindiuense, Colombia's national tree and the tallest palm in the world. Some grow over 200 feet tall. Yellow-eared parrots depend on these palms for nesting and roosting. The parrots nest inside old trunks and roost in flocks high above the misty forests, between 6,500 and 10,000 feet. Their diet includes fruits, seeds, and wax palm nuts, and they fly in noisy, chatty flocks, often heard long before they're seen. Fun fact, they're known to be loyal, often forming strong pair bonds and staying in tight-knit family groups. They also have a unique habit of snuggling together while perched, like a fuzzy parrot pile. Today, thanks to major conservation efforts, including collaboration with local farmers, school children, and even the Catholic Church, the population has rebounded from just a few dozen to over 1,000 individuals in protected areas like Jardin and Roncesvalles. But they're still endangered, mainly because wax palms were once cut for church festivals, and cloud forest habitat continues to shrink. The yellow-eared parrot is more than just a pretty face. It's a symbol of what's possible when science, tradition, and community work together. And when it glides past a foggy Andes ridge, you're not just seeing a bird, you're witnessing a miracle with feathers. Some birds are rare, others are legends. This one? It's both. Introducing the blue-bearded helmet crest, a hummingbird so rare, it literally disappeared for almost 70 years. It measures just 4 inches long and weighs about 0.1 ounces, smaller than your thumb. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in style. It has a greenish bronze body, a fluffy white helmet crest on its head, and most famously, a glowing metallic blue beard that hangs from its throat like a royal medallion. This bird lives only in the high-altitude paramo of the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, at elevations above 10,000 feet, where the air is thin, the ground is spongy with moss, and few creatures dare to live. For decades, it was thought extinct. No confirmed sightings since 1946. But in 2015, against all odds, a team of Colombian researchers rediscovered it on a remote slope no tourist had ever set foot on. Fun fact, its beard isn't just for looks. It's used in courtship displays, where the male flashes it while hovering to attract females. Yes, even tiny birds can flex. Blue-bearded helmet crests feed on nectar from high-elevation flowering plants, including Espeletia, aka Fraile Jones, a weird, fuzzy, sunflower-looking plant that only grows in the Paramo ecosystem. But here's the kicker. The entire global population is likely under 250 individuals, making it critically endangered. Threats include livestock grazing, fires, and habitat destruction in their tiny alpine range. And with climate change creeping up the mountains, they're running out of room and time. Seeing one in the wild is like spotting a living gem in the fog. Quiet, flickering, gone in a blink. The blue-bearded helmet crest reminds us, some of the world's most extraordinary creatures exist in the smallest corners and need protection before they vanish again. Imagine hiking through a misty Colombian forest, hearing the rustle of branches overhead, and spotting what looks like a jungle turkey, only sleeker, faster, and way more endangered. That's the Kakaaguan, a large ground-loving bird about 33 inches long and weighing up to 3.5 pounds. It has a chestnut brown body, white speckled chest, a long tail, and a bright red throat wattle that looks like a splash of tropical paint. Despite its size, the Kakaaguan is a strong flyer, but it prefers hopping between branches or walking through the undergrowth in search of fruits, seeds, flowers, and the occasional insect. It's found only in the Cauca Valley of western Colombia, specifically in remnant patches of humid tropical forest between 4,000 and 6,000 feet elevation. Once common, it was almost completely wiped out due to deforestation, hunting, and habitat fragmentation. By the 1980s, it was thought to be functionally extinct. But then, a miracle. Conservationists rediscovered a few surviving individuals in isolated forest fragments. That discovery led to the creation of the Reserva Natural Yautaco, one of Colombia's first private reserves dedicated to protecting endemic birds. Fun fact, the Kakaaguan is now considered a flagship species, meaning its survival supports the protection of entire forest ecosystems. If the guan thrives, so do hundreds of other plants and animals. It also plays a key role in the forest. As a seed disperser, it helps regenerate trees and maintain biodiversity. Thanks to decades of protection, its population is now slowly increasing, but it's still listed as endangered, with less than 1,000 individuals in the wild. So if you ever visit the forests of Valle del Cauca, listen for the soft rustle in the canopy, and keep an eye out for a big bird that looks like a forest guardian. The Kakaaguan is proof that even species on the edge can bounce back, with a little help and a lot of forest. Some birds are colorful, some are loud, and some just vanish into the fog. Meet the Chestnut Capped Pa, a medium-sized bird with a haunting voice and a history that reads like a mystery novel. It was officially described by science only in 2001 and is found exclusively in a small patch of central Andes cloud forest near Anari in Antiochia, Colombia. It's about 9 inches long, with a mostly gray body, a slightly lighter belly, and a chestnut crown that gives it its name. Nothing flashy, but its true signature is its sound. Its call is a slow, mournful whistle, often compared to a flute played in a cave. If the forest had ghosts, this is what they'd sound like. But spotting a chestnut-capped Pa is almost impossible. It moves silently through the canopy, alone or in pairs, feeding on fruit, especially from trees in the Lauracea family. It doesn't sing to show off, it sings to disappear. Fun fact, this bird was so elusive that for years local scientists referred to it as El Fantasma, the ghost. Today it's considered critically endangered, with a total known range of less than 100 square miles. That's about the size of a small town. Why? Because nearly all of its cloud forest habitat has been cleared for cattle, agriculture, and mining. But there's hope. Colombian conservation groups have created the Arrierito Antioqueño Reserve, a protected sanctuary named after the Pa's local nickname, El Arrierito, the little mule driver. This bird is now the flagship species for conservation in the region, drawing attention to an entire ecosystem on the brink. You might never see a chestnut-capped Pa. You might never hear it, but just knowing it's out there, gliding quietly through a fog-drenched forest, is enough to believe in the hidden magic of Colombia. Some birds soar through the skies. This one, it hides in the shadows. Meet the Santa Marta Parakeet, a plump, ground-dwelling bird that looks like a feathered avocado with legs. About 7 inches long, with earth-toned feathers, a short tail, and a nervous walk like it's late for something. It lives only in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, a sky island mountain range cut off from the Andes, meaning most of its wildlife evolved in complete isolation. This Parakeet prefers humid, dense montane forest between 6,000 and 9,000 feet, where the undergrowth is thick and the light barely filters through the canopy. You almost never see it fly. Instead, it hops and runs through the leaf litter, searching for insects, worms, and small invertebrates. Think of it as a little feathered hunter who really hates being seen. Its call, a soft, haunting whoop, often mistaken for the wind. But if you're quiet and lucky, it might answer you from the thicket. Fun fact, for years scientists knew very little about this bird. It was only through playback calls and motion sensor cameras that researchers began to understand its habits. It's one of several Ant Pea species in Colombia, but this one is completely endemic to the Santa Marta Mountains. It doesn't migrate, it doesn't wander. It stays in its misty corner of the forest, year-round. Sadly, like many endemics, the Santa Marta Ant Pea is threatened, primarily by habitat loss due to agriculture and illegal logging. Its small range makes it especially vulnerable to even small environmental changes. But recent conservation efforts, including locally led habitat protection and ecotourism programs, are giving it a better chance. So if you ever find yourself walking through the mossy trails of Sierra Nevada, pause, listen, and you might catch the soft footfall of this elusive forest ghost. The Santa Marta Ant Pea won't show off, but it might just let you glimpse the secret heart of the mountain. Welcome to the Chaco, one of the wettest places on Earth, and the perfect setting for one of Colombia's loudest, strangest, and rarest birds. Say hello to the Bodo Orendola. This large tropical bird is about 18 inches long, with chocolate brown plumage, a bright yellow tail, and a long pointy bill that fades from black to pale ivory. But its real claim to fame? That voice. Imagine a mix between a video game 8-bit glitch and a water droplet hitting metal. That's what this bird sings. Bodo Orendolas live only in the Bodo Mountains and coastal rainforests of Chaco, making them one of Colombia's most range-restricted endemics. They inhabit lowland rainforest canopies, often above 1,000 feet, nesting in tall trees surrounded by constant rain and dense greenery. They're colonial nesters, building long, hanging woven nests, sometimes over 3 feet long, in clusters that look like nature's chandeliers. Fun fact, the male performs acrobatic courtship displays, flipping almost upside down while calling, as if trying to impress with both moves and music. Let's just say, it's like a feathered DJ doing yoga mid-performance. They feed on fruit, nectar, and insects, foraging in the high canopy, and sometimes joining mixed species flocks. Despite their size and noise, they're very rarely seen, partly due to the remote, difficult terrain they live in, and partly because there just aren't many left. The Bodo Orendola is listed as vulnerable, with deforestation, illegal mining, and palm oil plantations slowly erasing their rainforest home. But hope remains, especially in protected areas like Utria National Park and indigenous-led conservation zones. Spotting a Bodo Orendola isn't easy. You'll likely hear it before you ever see it. A strange, comical sound drifting through 200 feet of dripping jungle. But if you do catch a glimpse, you'll understand why this bird, loud, weird, and wonderful, deserves its place in Colombia's cast of endemic stars. Some birds wear color like a costume. This one wears it like jewelry. Introducing the gold-ringed tanager, a rare and dazzling bird found only in Colombia's western Andes, deep inside the foggy cloud forests of Catatumá and adjacent regions. It's about 6.5 inches long, with velvety black plumage, a vivid green belly, a touch of turquoise on the wings, and most striking of all, a bold yellow ring encircling each eye, like nature gave it golden glasses. It moves through the canopy like a whisper, usually alone or in pairs, feeding on fruit and insects, and vanishing just as quickly as it appeared. Despite its brilliant look, the gold-ringed tanager was only discovered in 1967 and remains one of Colombia's least studied endemic birds. Why? Because its habitat is remote, steep, and constantly drenched in mist. It's hard to get to, and even harder to spot. Fun fact, locals sometimes call it El Joyero, the jeweler, because of its elegant markings and the way it seems to sparkle through the fog. It prefers elevations between 6,500 and 9,500 feet, and relies on mature cloud forests with dense epiphytes and fruiting trees. Unfortunately, its habitat is shrinking fast. Agriculture, logging, and climate change are creeping up the slopes, fragmenting the forest it calls home. The gold-ringed tanager is now listed as endangered, with only a few thousand individuals thought to remain. But efforts to protect it are growing, especially in and around Catatumá National Park, a stronghold for cloud forest biodiversity. Spotting one is like finding a gem in the forest, glowing yellow and green in a world of gray and green. The gold-ringed tanager doesn't just blend in, It reminds us that some of Colombia's brightest treasures hide in the clouds, waiting to be noticed. Let's head to the Magdalena Valley, where the forests are humid, the fruit is plentiful, and the birds are wearing capes. Say hello to the white-mantled Barbette, a chubby, fruit-loving bird that looks like it's dressed for a superhero movie. It's about 7.5 inches long, with a snow-white mantle across its back and shoulders, a red belly, black wings and crown, and a chunky ivory-colored bill that gives it a slightly grumpy expression, like it's constantly unimpressed, but still fabulous. White-mantled barbettes are endemic to Colombia, found only in a limited region between the Magdalena and Cauca rivers, usually below 5,000 feet elevation, in humid tropical forests with dense fruiting trees. They're part of the New World Barbette family, a group of birds known for their thick bills and love of fruit, especially figs, guavas, and berries. But they'll also snack on insects and even small vertebrates if they're feeling bold. Fun fact, these barbettes communicate with low, drum-like calls that echo through the canopy, something between a soft boop-boop and a tree frog on a microphone. They nest in tree cavities, often carving out their own with that powerful bill, and both parents take turns incubating eggs and feeding the chicks. But here's the problem. White-mantled barbettes are considered endangered, with much of their native forest cleared for cattle, coffee, and cocoa farms. They now survive only in fragmented patches, a few national parks and some private reserves. Conservation groups are working with local farmers to promote shade-grown crops and protect forest corridors that allow barbettes and other species to move safely. Seeing one in the wild is like spotting a bird that accidentally wandered off a Pixar set. Round, bold, expressive, and a little bit ridiculous. But don't let the look fool you. The white-mantled barbette is a key seed disperser in Colombia's tropical lowlands, and proof that even the funny-looking birds matter. Some birds have been known for centuries. This one, it wasn't even on the radar until 2010. Meet the Antiochia Ren, a tiny, energetic bird that lives only in a small patch of dry forest along the Cauca River in northwestern Colombia. It's just about 4.5 inches long, with a buffy white belly, warm brown upper parts, a bold white eyebrow, and a surprisingly loud, cheerful voice for such a small body. It hops through shrubs and low branches, singing a sweet, bubbly tune that sounds like spring bottled into a sound. Wren songs are famously complex, and this one's no exception. Here's the twist. The Antiochia Ren was unknown to science until researchers surveyed a region about to be flooded by the Hydro-Ituango Dam project, Colombia's largest hydroelectric development. Incredibly, they discovered a brand new species, but almost immediately realized it was already in danger. Fun fact, this wren's entire range covers less than 20 square miles, with most of it fragmented by farmland, roads, and now, a massive reservoir. It prefers semi-arid scrub and dry forest, a habitat that's often overlooked in conservation, because it's not as lush or glamorous as cloud forests or rainforests, but it's just as important. Today, the Antiochia Ren is listed as critically endangered. Scientists and conservation groups are scrambling to protect what's left of its habitat and create forest corridors where the birds can safely forage and nest. Some of the remaining patches are now under private reserve initiatives, with hopes of buying back land to stop further loss. The story of this bird isn't just about discovery, it's about how fragile a species can be, and how fast we must act when we realize it exists. The Antiochia Ren may be small, but its voice is a powerful reminder that sometimes we find life just before we lose it. Some birds demand your attention. This one avoids it completely. Meet the Brownbanded Ant Pea, a secretive ground dweller that lives in the Andes of central Colombia, seen so rarely that for decades, many birders considered it the holy grail of ghost birds. It's about 7 inches long, plump and round, with rich brown upper parts, a pale underbelly, and a faint chestnut band across the chest that gives the species its name. Its legs are long and strong, built for hopping, not flying. You won't find this bird flitting through treetops. It stays close to the forest floor, skulking through leaf litter, moss, and fog, looking for worms, insects, and beetles. It inhabits humid montane forests between 5,500 and 8,000 feet, mostly in small fragmented patches of the eastern and central Andes. Fun fact, the brown-banded ant Pea was first described in the 1890s, but went almost completely unobserved in the wild for most of the 20th century. Why? Because it's insanely shy, quiet, and blends into the underbrush like a rock with feathers. Most confirmed sightings come from camera traps or audio recordings of its soft, melancholy hoo-oop call. Like the forest itself is whispering, it's currently listed as vulnerable, with ongoing threats from deforestation, cattle grazing, and road building in its limited habitat. Fortunately, recent surveys and protected reserves, especially near Cundinamarca and Tolima, have found stable pockets of this elusive bird. The brown-banded ant Pea may never win a beauty contest, but it doesn't need to. It reminds us that not all endangered species are flashy, loud, or iconic. Some just quietly exist and ask only for a little forest and a little peace. Let's talk about elegance. The black Inca isn't your typical hummingbird. It doesn't shimmer like a jewel or dance like a disco light. Instead, it glows in velvet shadows. This species is found only in Colombia, specifically in the eastern Andes, in departments like Boyacá, Cundinamarca, and Santander. It's about 4.5 inches long, slightly larger than most hummingbirds, with inky black plumage that shifts to a deep purplish blue in the light, and a striking white patch on the chest, like it's wearing a formal tuxedo to a secret forest gala. The black Inca prefers humid montane forests between 6,500 and 9,000 feet, especially areas rich in flowering plants like Brunfelsia and Beslaria. Unlike other flashy hummingbirds, this one has a quieter presence, but it's no less important. It feeds on nectar, using its long, slightly curved bill to reach deep inside flowers, and also takes the occasional tiny insect for extra protein. Fun fact, it often returns to the same flower patches every day, establishing a personal nectar circuit, which it defends from intruders, including other hummingbirds. Despite its strength and adaptability, the black Inca is listed as vulnerable due to habitat loss from agriculture, cattle, and road development. Its forest is disappearing, and with it, the delicate balance of birds, flowers, and pollination. Several reserves in eastern Colombia are now protecting its remaining habitat, and ecotourism, especially hummingbird photography, is helping bring attention to this quiet guardian of the cloud forest. The black Inca doesn't shout for attention, it simply exists, noble, rare, and undeniably beautiful. A reminder that in Colombia, even the shadows sparkle. We've seen big birds, loud birds, and rare birds. Now let's end with something small, but absolutely unforgettable. Meet the Santa Marta blossom crown, a tiny hummingbird found only in the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, and one of the most elusive jewels in Colombia's crown. It measures just 3.5 inches long, with coppery green plumage, a snowy white belly, and its signature feature, a bright pinkish copper crown on its head, like a tiny flame or a blossom in bloom. This bird lives in humid montane forests and forest edges between 4,000 and 6,500 feet elevation, often in areas rich with flowering plants, where it feeds on nectar using a slender, curved bill. It flits from flower to flower with precision and grace, hovering silently like a breath of air, and vanishes just as quickly. Fun fact, there are 2 subspecies of blossom crown in Colombia, but this one, from Santa Marta, is completely isolated. The other lives far away in the central Andes. They haven't seen each other for millions of years. Because of its small range, the Santa Marta blossom crown is listed as endangered. Habitat loss, grazing, and agriculture have taken a toll, and sightings are now extremely rare. But hope remains. Some protected areas and local conservation projects are working to preserve the flowering forest this tiny bird calls home. The Santa Marta blossom crown may not be loud or flashy, but it is living proof that beauty doesn't need volume. It closes our journey not with a bang, but with a whisper of wings, and the shimmer of a crown, deep in the Colombian cloud forest. If you've enjoyed this flight through Colombia's wildest skies, don't forget to like, share, and drop a comment below. Tell us which bird stole your heart, because honestly, we've only scratched the surface. There are still hummingbirds that sparkle like sapphires, parrots that speak in clicks, and birds so strange they haven't even been named yet. Colombia isn't just the bird capital of the world. It's a living, breathing museum with wings. And the deeper into the jungle you go, the stranger, rarer, and more magical it gets. We're already packing our gear for the next stop, a place where mountains float, clouds touch your boots, and the air is thin but full of feathers.